we know how to do all of our basic operations with fractions. We can add, subtract, multiply, divide, take powers. So we want to be able to put all of that information together and simplify fractions that may have fractions in both the denominator and the numerator. The idea here is to take it piece at a time. So look at only the numerator, try to figure out what that fraction is going to be, and then simplify the denominator, figure out what that fraction is going to be, and then hopefully after you finish this you're going to have a fraction divided by a fraction, and we know how to divide fractions now. So the easiest way to explain what I'm trying to talk about is through the use of a couple examples. So here's an example of what I mean by a really complex fraction. Inside of our numerator we have the expression 2 over 3 plus 1/2. And in the denominator of our fraction, we have the number 7. So what we want to do first is we want to work on trying to simplify the numerator. Now what we need to do to add these two fractions is to find a common denominator. And if you work on trying to find the LCM of these two numbers, you'll find that that LCM is 6. And we're going to change 2 over 3 to a fraction over 6 by multiplying both numbers by 2. And we'll change 1/2 into a fraction over 6 by multiplying both numbers by 3. Great, now we can add these two numbers together. We're going to get 7 over 6, all divided by the number 7. And to help us think about what's going on, I'm going to write 7 as a fraction, 7 over 1. What we really have is we have a fraction divided by another fraction. We can think of this as a division problem, so what we're going to do is we're going to find the reciprocal of our second fraction and then multiply them together. So we have 7 over 6 times the reciprocal of our denominator, which is 1 over 7. You'll notice that the two factors will cancel, and we are left with the fraction 1 over 6. Alright, next up we want to simplify this complicated fraction. Notice that in the numerator we're already simplified. We have one fraction, we're good to go. Where we need to focus our attention is in the denominator. We need to make this subtraction into one fraction only, and then we can finish up this question. So in order to subtract these two fractions, we need to find a common denominator. Or we need to write 1 as a fraction with a denominator of 4. We know that fraction should be 4 over 4. Perfect. Now we can go ahead and we can subtract those two fractions in the denominator to get 1 over 4. And then we think about this division of two fractions as a multiplication. We do 5 over 12 times 4 over 1. So do notice here that a factor of 4 we can remove from the number 12. If we do that, we're left with the number 3. So our final fraction here is going to be 5 over 3. Or if you want to write this as a whole number plus a fraction, it will be 1 plus 2 over 3. Now just to refresh your memory, it's a 4-step procedure. The first thing we want to look for is any sets of brackets, and we'd like to do all of the operations inside of those brackets first. Next, it's up to us to simplify any expressions that involve exponents. After we're done with the brackets and exponents, then we go through and we multiply or divide in the order they appear from left to right. After multiplication and division is completed, our last step is to look through and find any additions and subtractions and do them in order as they appear from left to right. Okay, let's jump right into it and work on what I think is a pretty challenging problem when it comes to fractions. So where do we start? Well, we have to look and see where our brackets are first. Now we have two sets of brackets. We have one here, and inside this set of brackets we have a subtraction. We also have a set of brackets over here, and this bracket is indicating for us to do an exponential operation. It's up to you where you want to start. what I'm going to do is work on the exponential first and get rid of that set of brackets, and then come back and do the subtraction, because it's more difficult, I think, to find a common denominator here than it is to do the multiplication. So 1/2 to the power of 2 really means 1/2 times 1/2. And we know that 1/2 times 1/2, we can go ahead and just multiply the numerators together and the denominators together to get 1/4. So that simplifies our first set of brackets. Next, we want to work in here, and the way for us to subtract these fractions is to find a common denominator. And it looks like a good candidate for a common denominator is the number 6. So I'm going to multiply the numerator 4 by 2 to get 8/6. And that's going to allow us to do this subtraction. So let's continue on. What I've done is I have added our two fractions together with the same denominator. So I've done 8 minus 5 to get 3/6. So now we've rid ourselves of all of the brackets and all of the exponents, and what we have to do is go through this expression and find all of the multiplications and divisions and do them in order. We only have one multiplication or division, and that's over here. Now remember that we don't want to divide fractions. It's much easier to multiply fractions. So I'm going to switch this division into a multiplication sign, and I'm going to take the reciprocal of this fraction. So if you'd like, you can stop here and you can cancel out one of these factors. So we have a factor of 4, and we're going to be left over with 2 down here. So we can multiply here, get 7 times 1, and 2 times 1. So our new fraction is 7/2. Our last step is to do this addition. We need a common denominator for that. And that common denominator again is going to be 6. So let's go ahead and multiply 7 by 3 to get 21. And when we add these fractions together, we will have 24/6. Now 6 does divide evenly into 24, and we can simplify this one more step to just the number 4. All right, my little epsilons, stay positive.